we're talking with Doug Bursch about his new book, Posting Peace. Doug, thanks so much for taking the time to talk to us today.
Oh, my pleasure.
We live in a world where social media sometimes can be, wow, you just shake your head as to what is happening. And so this is a very timely book. What led you to write on this topic?
Well, the subheading for the book is it's Posting Peace, why social media divides us and what we can do about it. And I think everyone can relate to that title. We realize we're becoming more polarizing, more divided. Everyone talks about that, but we don't necessarily know why it's happening or what to do about it. So I thought at a practical level, I would delve into that personally for myself to see why it's dividing us. And then also, I don't want to just be fatalistic and say the rest of our life is going to be miserable with social media. I want to find a way to have a better interaction online.
I think for a lot of people, when it comes to social media and they encounter something that they don't like or disagree with, they disconnect or they find a social media platform where everyone agrees with what they believe, or they unfriend or block people, or they rant back. What are some of the constructive ways that you see to work with social media in a peaceful way?
Well, one of the things we have to recognize that the media itself is polarizing us. Now, I'm not all negative. There's all kinds of positive things about social media, but social media allows us to segment ourselves. And a couple ways that happens is we just have so much access to networks of individuals. And so let's say if you and I are friends on Facebook, if you offend me, I can say, well, I can just leave you and find someone who agrees with me. That wasn't necessarily the case before the internet age. You had less people you could connect with. So the technology itself makes it so we don't learn how to reconcile. We don't learn how to go through a conflict. To add to that, we can find people just like us. So they agree with us politically, socially, even some of the strange, hobbies we have. And that can be positive. But the negativity with that is we can isolate ourselves from dealing with people who are different from us or people who disagree with us. And we only unite as much as we agree upon a certain issue. Now, as Christians, we know that our mandate is to be actually transformers of the world, reconciling agents of change. And so my goal is not just for people to agree with me. My goal is actually to present my life and my faith in such a way that people are drawn to God, reconciliation. And so I have to use the media in a different way. I have to recognize that it's going to polarize me. And if I'm not careful, I'll just end up with a bunch of people who agree with me on certain issues. So that's part of it, I think, that awareness that we need to use the media for something more than just our self-gratification. And one of the things that even hit me is there's these two scholars who talk about the term, it's Rainey and Wellman, and they talk about the term networked individualism. And a lot of people use social media in that way. We basically just use it for our own personal needs. I need an answer about something. I need comfort in some area. And so we use it primarily just for individualism. We network with people based on individualistic needs. Well, as a Christian, that's not really my goal. I'm supposed to actually be the servant of all. And so I need to see the medium as a place to build community, to build relationships, something very different than what it's used for. So I think those are some of the issues that I think we must address when we move into this context, that if we don't, we're just going to use it for our own purposes, and we're going to isolate in our own little silos of people who agree with us.
I'm making light here, but I'm on social media, let's say with you, and I believe the Seahawks are the worst team that has ever been created in professional sports. Do you take a conversation like that sort of off the public face of a Facebook or a site like that and say, hey, let's talk about this separately? And of course, I'm just jesting that it would be the Seahawks, but something that is more meaty, and you and I are clashing. How do you handle that?
Well, I'm greatly offended by that, and I'm going to end this interview right now.
Perfect.
Well, one of the things is people who are listening to this notice this, that I know you're joking because your voice, your intonation, the way you're talking with me. And one of the problems with dealing with conflict through social media is we don't have as many cues. And that's one of the things to me is whether you take something offline or you go to a direct message with someone and just talk one-on-one, we must recognize that we don't see the facial cues. We don't hear the vocal intonations. And so all of that can make it so if I feel like threatened or I don't have a relationship with you, if you write something like, yeah, the CX are terrible this year, and I think you're just attacking me and you're a jerk, I can make all these assumptions that will accelerate things. So to me, I have to really take an extra step to at least figure out what your intentions are before we even get into the discussion about the Seahawks. And that takes more work. In fact, they've found that there's parts of our brain that are used more in verbal communication, in visual communication, and in written communication. With the internet, what do people usually argue? What form do they argue in? They start typing these long things, and one person types something, and the other person types something back. Well, that's all reading. And when you read, you're usually using more like the left side of your brain. And scholars might argue with whether it's left or right, but you're only using a portion of your brain. And that portion sometimes isn't the more creative, big picture ability to deal with conflict part of the brain. It's just dealing with that one issue. So to me, if you and I are having a conversation, I have to first figure out your intent. I have to ask extra questions. What do you mean by that? Are you giving me a bad time? Something to kind of get your heart. And then ultimately, even if I'm communicating disagreement, my goal isn't to win the argument. My goal is for you to know the love of God and to know my love as well. And if that's not my goal, then I'm not really being an agent of change in this world. So I can tell you that I disagree, but if I'm trying to destroy you, I'm trying to win and you lose and you feel bad and me feel good, then I've missed what the call of my life is online. I can say, you're totally wrong and I'll pray for you. But the reality is all those things are in social media. And I go into this in great detail in the book because to me, this is a struggle that we're not trying to be polarizing, but we just find ourselves in these exaggerated conversations and we're like, how did this happen? How did it become this shouting match online? And I think it's because we're not aware of these dynamics.
Very good. Well, Doug, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today about posting peace. I wish you all the best with the book and really appreciate the time we've had to chat.
Martin, thank you.